Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Linda Marone. I'm Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I will be your moderator today. Before we get started, just as a reminder, we do have the chat box open and welcome your questions for our guests, and so feel free to write in as they come to mind. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL Services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, both today and in the future. As you can see, we serve a very broad client base, and we span all industries. Today, we are thrilled to once again introduce Dr. JoAnn Hackos. Dr. Hackos is the president of Comtech Services, a content management and information design firm based in Denver, Colorado, which she founded in 1978. She is also the director of the Center for Information Development Management, or CIDM, a membership organization focused on content management and information development best practices. Dr. Hackos and her colleagues are called upon by corporate executives worldwide to consult on strategies for content management, development, and organizational management, product interface design, customer studies, web and traditional information architecture, and tools and technology selection and implementation. JoAnn is also a fellow and past president of the International Society for Technical Communication. Our webinar today is the last of a three-part series focusing on getting change to happen. If you believe there has to be a better way, obviously, then you're on the cusp of changing your organizational habits, and that's what these three sessions have been based on. In today's session, Dr. Hackos will showcase managers who have successfully implemented major organizational changes and improved their practices as a result. I'm going to go ahead and turn the webinar over to Dr. JoAnn Hackos and our panel. Thank you again.
Thank you, Linda. Let's see if we can get the slides working. Let's see. Okay, just this is just a small indication of the kinds of companies that we're seeing really moving to change, changing practices, introducing new tools and technology, like I know many of you already are, changing the way they work, changing the way people write information, the way information is delivered. I think we're at a time in the technical information industry where we're just being faced with so many changes that we really need to learn from the experience of people who have gone through this before and I think have success in the changes they've been trying to make. So this is our starting point today. And, okay. I wanted to start out just by doing a little recap of the kinds of things we've been talking about in the first two parts of this series. We started out talking about the work of Charles Duhigg and his book called The Power of Habit. In that study, he really looked at what made a difference in both in people's personal lives and in business reorganizations and change implementations. What really worked? And he looked at a lot of the ways that were really governed by habits. Some of those are really good things because we don't want to have to think about everything we do all of the time. But some of those habits get in the way of really contributing effectively to this rapidly changing information environment that we're facing. The kinds of things that we keep hearing, and I'm sure you're hearing too, is that change is expensive. Change is hard. We've been doing the tried and true things for so many years. How can we do something different? It takes too much time for me to learn how to do something new. You know, you want me to use new tools and new structures and think about customers in different ways, and you know that's just hard. And I'm reluctant to do that. And if you've heard that story from some of your coworkers or your staff, you know the resistance to change is really one of the strongest issues we have to deal with, one of our greatest challenges when we're introducing something new in our organizations, a new way of thinking about customers, a new way of thinking about information, a new way of managing structured authoring, a new way of dealing with tools and technology to create content, new media that we have to use these days to deliver content effectively. And this is what Dewey was telling us in Power of Habit, and also providing us with some ways to change this picture as well. We need to, of course, stop the whining and really face the fact that change is all around us, and that there are things that we can't avoid, that there have to be ways to do this. And I think that managers in technical information often themselves are afraid of change. It comes out not so much in asking for funding or for new tools and technology, or deciding, well, maybe we ought to adopt some new ways of developing structure. But the kinds of things that I hear all the time, I think also reflect a concern about change. The story that, well, we're always understaffed and we don't have enough people to do something new. There's not enough time. We have to meet our deadlines, and we don't have time to introduce new things into the way we deal with information. Probably one of the strongest arguments that I hear is that we don't have time to visit our customers. We don't have time to talk to them, or no one will let us talk to customers. And that's, I think, often a defensive mechanism that says, talking to customers is hard, and maybe talking to customers is a little threatening. And I think what we have to do in looking at this is really change what I'm calling the value proposition, really change the way we think about things and the way we handle them. Traditionally, it's, these arguments, we're understaffed. Understaffing affects our morale. Here's a quote, our tools suck. Look at this 400-line spreadsheet. How can I possibly do anything with this? And I think what it is that I'd like to hear instead is this change in value proposition. Arguing, for example, that new ways of working, new ways of addressing the needs of customers fits right in with our corporate strategy. Our corporation is interested in retaining good customers and keeping those customers satisfied with their ability to implement and deploy our products quickly with staff members who have to learn how to use them effectively. We want to be sure that our priorities in our move to a new way of working also match the priorities and the projects within the corporation as a whole, that we're aligned with that direction, that corporate direction. We need to show, what we can do today, what's above the line with our current resources. And we also need to acknowledge and to emphasize in some cases that these are things that we should be doing, that we want to be able to do, and we have the capacity perhaps to do them, but they're below the line because of budget problems, because of tools acquisition, because of staffing issues in terms of having the right people to do the new work. We know that we can add value to the customers, but we need to do that in an active way and really contribute to the customer success. and that successful customer who hopefully recommends our product to their friends and neighbors or buys the next new upgrade as soon as it comes out, or adds to the product portfolio that they already have because they're satisfied with their ability to deploy effectively and to maintain the products that we're giving them. And we need to be very explicit in here's the way we know, here are the things we know we can do to solve our problems, but we might need some help. We might need some help from senior management, from colleagues in management positions throughout the organization to really help us get to the place that we can be bringing in additional revenue to the company, supporting the increase in market share, supporting the increase in global market share especially, which I think in many cases we're quite involved in supporting, especially with translation. We need to say that we've developed and we can continue to develop sound action plans to move ahead. Some of those action plans need to have an outward focus, and I'm always afraid that in managing change, too many times publications managers focus on inward changes, and the customer really doesn't perceive anything that's happened differently. So I'd like to make sure that in our project plans for change, we have an outward focus. We're focusing on the user experience. How are people finding information? Are they finding what they need? Is it the information that they need once they find something? Can we improve the quality of the information, the quality of its delivery? Can we improve its findability when that information is on websites or in mobile media or in in diverse social media that we want to provide? Can we ensure that we're adding the right social media to the user experience, allowing them to interactively communicate with one another or with the key personnel within our organization? And are we focused, I think, more and more these days on solutions, on how to solve problems, how to troubleshoot effectively, how to get things working quickly and easily, solutions rather than long descriptions of features that come from engineering specifications. All of those lead us to a project plan, an action plan that focuses outward on the customer's experience. Of course, we also need to look inward. We need to look at our key performance indicators. How are we using best practices, new processes, new tools, new ways of working to measure, to look for key indicators of increases in productivity, in increases in efficiency of our operations, the things that we had been doing that we shouldn't be doing, and certainly the quality of our output. The leading indicators we hope are in place to ensure that what we're producing is the right thing, rather than only the lagging indicators that tell us after the fact that it was wrong. In light of all of these kinds of new requirements, we need to perhaps write new job roles and new job descriptions and create new roles within our organization, especially roles like the information architect or the video production specialist, or the person who's handling 3D animations, or the people who are really responsible for following social media outlets that we're using and ensuring that we understand what the customers are talking about. And we also need to work closely with other departments that are involved in information development, creating what IBM has called a total information experience. And that means looking at support organizations and training organizations and marketing organizations and any others that are really creating content or need to use content to get the message across effectively. From those action plans, I think we also need to explain our return on investment. And I'm hoping we're going to create a really good set of cases for you to help you do that today. We need to add value to the product, and say, and argue and show that good information can drive additional sales to the same customers because they are able to use the products we offer as a suite, as a full solution. Many times we hear from customers that, you know, every product has its own documentation, but working across those products is incredibly difficult because nobody's explaining the interactions, the edges between one product and another, and that needs to become an important part of our portfolio. Certainly solutions-oriented or scenario-based information needs to be there as well. And we know that with some pretty good case studies that excellent information can increase market share. We also know the converse, that really bad information can help decrease market share. We use things like the Net Promoter Score to show that that customers can be influenced by the quality of information. In a recent study that Ben Jackson and Paul Parada of Juniper Networks conducted, they asked key customers how much they thought the documentation was worth of the purchase price of what they were buying from Juniper Networks, telecommunications product company. And customers responded with figures of 10 to 20%, which is pretty spectacular. Out of that kind of analysis, Juniper executives and information development, user experience executives calculated that they could potentially show a small increase in profit due to increase in market share by better information. And they could also, of course, calculate the cost of reducing, or the value of reducing support calls. A project we're working on right now is aimed toward helping customers solve 80% of their problems without having to call customer service. So these are the kinds of things that we've all been looking at, and I hope they're the kinds of stories that we're going to tell today. So we're going to look at two different organizations today, both of them manufacturers, and I hope they don't mind my ancient pictures here. I thought it was a little bit of fun finding the old way of doing things. Xylem is a global pump manufacturer, hopefully a little more modern pumps than this one. And Varian Medical Systems produces equipment and software that is used for radiation therapy and oncology information within hospitals and clinics. Both of them were faced with challenges, right? Outdated practices, inconsistent information produced in many, many, many different ways, and for the people who were doing much of the writing, really not enough knowledge of customers. Xylem initially was focused on improving the quality of their operations and maintenance manuals, the manuals that go to dealers and to end-user customers to use and operate their equipment. Varian was focused on the medically required by the FDA, Federal Food and Drug Administration, and also equivalent Asian and European organizations. Documents that are called instructions for use, or IFUs, and working to reduce the costs of developing those documents, and then producing documents that were more effective in meeting customer needs. The challenges, I think, facing both organizations was to change the old habits and introduce something new and really make it stick. So I'd like to now introduce our two speakers. And let me see if I can get my slide there. There we go. And we have two wonderful speakers today. I'm very pleased that they could join us. Both of them took on new responsibilities to manage the development of customer information and also to reduce the cost of translation. But that was only the starting point. We'll begin with Vikram's story and then move on to Kevin's. Be sure to put your questions in the question area of the meeting information and not in the chat area, because I'll be monitoring those as we go along, and we'll have plenty of time to answer questions. But let me do a few little introductions. Vikram Nanwani is the GECM, the Global Enterprise Content Management Manager for Xylem, a company that recently spun off from ITT Fluid Technology. He's in effect their Global Technical Communication Publications Manager. He joined the GECM in 2008, coming from an international project management and engineering background, and really with not a lot of documentation experience. But he also brought some really great things to that mix. He's driven the maturity of data in the organization through pilot projects, implementation, migration, and production until it's now a core business process. Vikram has a master's in manufacturing engineering from the University of Cambridge, and he is also a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and I think that's been a tremendous contribution to what he's been able to do with the publications group. He also worked in global manufacturing, research and development, and is a chartered manufacturing engineer. Kevin O'Reilly is the Senior Director of Customer Support Service Marketing at Varian Medical Systems. Kevin and his team drive the global service revenue for the world's leading manufacturer, as Varian is, of oncology radiation hardware and software. They work with strategic planning, service product innovation, commercialization, and marketing communications. In addition, Kevin heads Varian's customer satisfaction and technical publications teams, where he spearheaded the company's introduction to data and to translation initiatives. Prior to joining Varian about 3 years ago, Kevin spent 15 years at Photon Dynamics before it was acquired in various roles, including as general manager of their flat panel inspection unit. He has a bachelor's science in engineering, electrical engineering from the Dublin Institute of Technology. I just kidded with him that we have both an Englishman and an Irishman here today. So I want to start now by turning this over to Vikram, and Vincent, I think you're bringing up the slides.
Thank you, Joanne, and thank you for the great introduction. What I wanted to do today was just quickly give you a quick overview of who Xylem is, and then run you through a little bit of our history as to how we implemented DISA at Xylem, or ITT as it was at that time, and really focus most of the time on what I feel were some of the key success factors for us, and finally having some concluding remarks on kind of where we think we're going over the next 1, 2, 3 years with our structured writing implementation. So as Joanne said, Xylem is a water applications leader, and what I mean with that is that Xylem really provides the know-how, the tools, and the equipment to be able to, that spans the whole cycle of water. So we're looking at moving water around, pumping the water, which is one of our key products, but also treating the water, cleaning it, testing it, and that's for both agricultural, industrial, and residential applications. And really we're uniquely positioned to be able to solve some of the major global water challenges facing the planet over the medium and the long term, and that's really what we are focused on supporting our customers with at the moment. So I'll start with, when I'm looking at documentation at Xylem, I just want to explain a little bit of our documentation profile so you can put into the context of what your needs might be at your specific organization. And I apologize about the lag with the slides. They will catch up. The product areas where Xylem's involved in, it's industrial, commercial, and residential products. So we're really doing mainly kind of mechanical devices, machinery. We have some software documentation and software products, so that's relatively limited. We're supporting up to actually more than 40 languages now. I think we've hit 41 or 42, and we've got 4,000 plus documents that we are that are active and that we're supporting today. We get reuse levels in an average of about 70%, and the kind of documents we produce, they span between 2 and let's say 300 pages, but a typical document of ours is about 40 or 50 pages. That's the kind of thing we normally produce.
I know, I'm trying to fix the sound.
And
we're having trouble with the slides, Vikram.
Shoot. Yeah, hang on one second, Vikram.
And maybe it'll be better if Vincent advances them for you.
no, slide 8.
Okay, there we go. Do you want Vincent to advance them?
If you could, that would be great, and I'll give you an audio.
Yeah, just give me a cue.
Sure. So the main thing we're producing is product manual, so the installation, operation, and maintenance manual. That's kind of the book that goes with the product and the box. But we're actually expanding and also doing things such as service manuals, parts lists, technical specifications, and now moving into catalogs, so marketing type material. We're mainly producing PDFs, but we're also testing things such as mobile, HTML, health files. And the reason for that is really just the nature of our business. Only now our industry is getting ready to embrace some of these new technologies, and we're ready to provide that. We have a team of 15 people, and they're based in Sweden, India, the US, and Italy at the moment. So it's quite a dispersed team. Can you go to the next slide? So a little bit of the history. We started this in 2007, and we started with a pilot phase. And what I mean with that is we selected the tools, the processes, the kind of information architecture, and the guidelines that we thought we needed. We talked to our end users, that's some of those were internal, some external, to understand kind of what they needed in terms of our documentation, how we could make it better quality, more readable, more complete. And from that, we really developed 3 product manuals using these processes and tools, etc., to make sure that we could iron out all the issues, and also taking those new manuals back to these end users to get the feedback and make sure that we had actually not just improved our process, but also improved the quality of what we were producing for our customers. That went well, and then in 2008 and 2009 we had the migration process where really we were rewriting all our core product manuals in the new system. 2008 we mainly used external writing consultants to do that, because we had to have our both processes running in parallel for a while. And in 2009 we still used consultants quite extensively, but our Xylem team started getting more actively involved in that. 2010 also was our first production year. We kind of pretty much had phased out most of the old tools and processes, and we're working completely in Vista and structured writing now. But since we are now handing over from the consultants onto the internal teams, we're fixing a lot of legacy issues that had kind of cropped up. But more importantly, the team had to learn kind of how to work in this new way, and the key part of that was learning how to collaborate. Reusing topics, having the right tools, and having the right information architecture was a key building block for that. But then it came down to having people interact with each other in a way that they never had to before, because in the old way, that we used to work, an individual writer would work on his IOM or his product manual for one particular product series and didn't really have to worry about what anyone else in the organization was doing, and then we were changing that. That was made especially hard for us because we didn't have one writing team. We had different people writing and developing documentation at different sites in different countries, at different divisions within our organization. And so they didn't really report into one central point. And a lot of my work during those years was encouraging these people to collaborate and work together, even though they didn't have to or even belong to the same team. We got through that in 2011. People were very comfortable with the tools, the processes, and they were starting now to kind of stop collaborating and start working more independently. And we saw the danger of moving to an area where we would start losing a lot of this reuse and best practice sharing and that we've managed to build up over those first 4 years. And so in 2012, we created a global organization. So we got all these individual people and teams throughout the organization that were doing this writing and put them into one team. So we didn't, they're still located close to where the products are developed, but they are reporting to one team. And from a mindset and a collaboration perspective, that made a huge difference. If you could go to the next slide. And it's a little bit of how kind of our process and organization matured over the years, where we started this as a project, and it's now became then a core business process, and now we've actually kind of got one global team servicing the whole global Xylem organization, which is spread in 30+ countries and 12,500 employees. We virtually stopped using external writing consultants except for special projects. And we're moving beyond that technical documentation domain and starting to encroach in the marketing domain, which is something we've always wanted to do. We're automating a lot of the quality checks and building a big terminology database. And this was a key part of our driver when we were doing this. So there was a lot of efficiencies and cost savings that we could get, and we were really selling that to management, and that was a key part of the puzzle. But at the same time, we were selling, and I think Joanne was alluding to this, the fact that we're going to improve the quality of what we're giving to our customer, and these two things are not mutually exclusive. We can both cut costs and improve the quality of what we're giving to our end customer, and also at the same time make us future ready. So I talked a little bit there about, we're mainly doing PDF, and that's been the case for the last 4 or 5 years. But everyone could see that at some point that was going to change. And so we were already saying, well, by making the investment now, we are cutting costs, we're improving quality, but also we will be in a position where we can create HTML, mobile, or whatever format we might want in the future because of the way we're designing this. If you could go to the next slide. And so, we got the quality benefits, we got all of these being future enabled. But when it comes down to cost, we made some commitments then, and we had a good story then to go back to our management with. We've massively reduced the amount of consultants we use. We're using them a lot for the technical documentation parts of our process. And really, we're producing more than before and having to use a lot less resources to do that. In terms of the translation savings, that was our key driver, I would say, and we've really reduced our translation costs per language by, as you can see, there are almost 90%. Our total translation cost isn't down as much as that because we are translating into a huge number of more languages than we ever have before. And that's, again, allowing us to enter new markets and grow our market share in a way where the cost before was prohibitive because translating all our documentation just did not justify going into some of the smaller markets. By reducing that cost, we can now do that a lot more cost effectively than ever before. We're saving our engineers time. They're spending less time reviewing content, giving us content and feedback, and that means we were freeing up their time to really work on the more value-added activities, which is really innovation, which is what they're there for primarily. And finally, working out cost per pages is a bit tricky, especially in the way we work with DITA, but that's a metric that we've kind of been able to come up with some kind of estimate. And that's important because that's something that everyone in the organization understands. You can talk about cost per topic or whatever other kind of cost, but when you're talking about cost per page, everyone can really get a sense for the impact that we're having in terms of the cost of the process. Can you skip the next slide as well? In terms of the key success factors, what I'd say again from my personal experience, when I was hired to drive this, as Joanne mentioned, I'm a black belt project manager, and I was hired to manage a project. But that was an aspect of my role. So I would say it was not the key aspect of my role. Really what I was doing most of the time and what enabled us to succeed was I was working, selling and marketing what we were doing continuously to all levels of the business and communicating that. You know, it was important to have kind of project management, information architecture experience in the team, some people who understood about IT, but the success was all about the communication. And if we go to the next slide, you know, we were communicating everything. You know, we developed a vision, a business plan. This is where we want to go to in the long term. We got the buy-in for that, and we kept on reminding people that this is the end goal. This is what we're going to gain, because there's a lot of steps along the way. Some of them require some extra effort. Some might be in themselves not seem like a very valuable thing to do. So you always have to put it in context of that vision that you're driving towards. And constantly updating people, letting people know what you're achieving or what they're failing on. Can't assume that they know either way, and you don't want them to find out about your failures from other sources, because that undermines your credibility. You know, giving them updates on the plans, the status, and also the benefits. You know, you need to start showing some gains, no matter how small they are, so they can start seeing, well, we've made this investment in time, effort, cost, whatever it might be. These are some of the success stories that we can start getting back. And this is both internal, and if we go to the next slide, both internal and external. You need to do this to your own team, get your team motivated, make them realize why we're doing this, but also to all the stakeholders out there in the organization. So we're communicating everything and as often as possible. And important to make sure that we include people that are actually going to do the work. You know, the people that are going to give you the feedback and the content for these product manuals might be, you know, the engineers who are working on developing the product. And it's very easy to kind of forget them and assume that, well, they're going to be giving us feedback like they always did before. They need to be involved in the process. Everyone's going to be affected by this. Once you have your funding and your senior management supports you, just as they can give you the funding and give you the support, that can go. So once you get it, don't assume that they're forever and for life. You need to keep on engaging them. You need to keep on reminding them why they supported this and what they're getting back for it. And again, don't assume people either know what you're doing or that when management supports you that they're going to go out there selling this for you again. You need to go and engage people directly. And teams change, people change, people forget what you've told them, what they've committed to, so you just need to continuously communicate that, so when new people join these particular parts of the organization, they get informed as to what you're doing and why. And communicate, again, in various forms. And I think the important thing here is to understand how is that message best transmitted to the particular target audience that you've got. So some people you really need to talk face-to-face. Some people can have an email, a presentation, and you really need to vary the message and the style of the message according to the audience, because you're going to have quite a varied bunch of people that you need to really be buying into this going forward. Next slide. And so the communication also is the one big takeaway, but there's a few other things as well that I just wanted to quickly highlight. Developing that clear vision, that business plan, and having an executive sponsor that buys into that and is able to drive that with you going forward was really key for us. As part of that is having that clear plan, numbers driven, having kind of this is what it's going to cost us, this is how long it's going to take us, and this is what we're going to get back. And then going back to that, even if it's 2 or 3 years later, people might forget that plan, but if you tell them, 2 years ago, this is what we committed to, delivering in 2 years' time, and this is what we have delivered, that really builds credibility because you're going to keep on wanting to drive this to new levels as you go forward. I'll definitely recommend getting help from experts. If you can afford that, there's consultants and other companies that have gone on this journey like ourselves. There's lots of mistakes that can be avoided just by being able to either share the experience or get some consultants to help. So I definitely recommend that because you're going to increase your chances of success quite significantly. If you could jump to the last slide. Next slide after that. Just a few things that we're driving today in terms of the organization. I talked about having one unified technical writing team, and we're really trying to organize these writers now around topics, around content, and not around the books and the product series that they typically worked on. And for that, we're really pushing the role of this kind of global planning and prioritization person who can put together these projects that are coming from all over the organization, being able to resource them and have 5, 6 people working at the same time on a project, really reducing those cycle times, having and being able to therefore deliver a much leaner process than we ever had before. And from the technical side, we're looking at mobile. We're really driving the marketing documentation part. And one thing I wanted to mention on that, we always knew we could do marketing documentation. We're not doing it now because suddenly I or our team has had a focus on that. We've been planting that seed and that idea for the last 2 or 3 years within the marketing organization, giving a consistent message as to what they can gain, what they can do. And now we're starting to get the rewards of that because they are now coming to us almost literally begging and saying, we know you've got solutions and we need help. And we always knew they needed that, but we've kind of been building that up over the last 2 or 3 years, and now we're really prepared to support them with that. And we're doing some things with integrating with SharePoint, which is an important platform in Xylem, and some of those things are looking very smart. And the beauty of that is you're giving, we can give people now a way into what we're doing through SharePoint, which is now a familiar user interface. And we're not having to get them to learn how to use the CMS or know what data is or anything like that. And that really is going to open up the number of people that can be involved in what we're doing very significantly, we believe, in future. Thank you, and I guess I'll hand over to Kevin now.
How many people do you have on the staff, the writing group?
15 people.
And IOMs mean?
Installation, operation, and maintenance manual.
We had 2 quick questions. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. We've got a lot of questions yet, but I want to give Kevin an opportunity to talk about the Varian story. So, Vincent, if you can bring up the next set of slides.
Yes.
And Kevin, we can advance those for you. Just say when you want.
Sure. 1 second.
How much time would you like for questions at the end of this?
I'd like about 15 minutes if we can have it.
Well, I have a hard stop at 8, but.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. So, well, thanks everybody for joining, and thanks Joanne for inviting me. I think you're going to hear a very similar story to what Vikram just told everybody. We went through a very similar kind of an evolution, but I think I'll give you a kind of a slightly different perspective. As Joanne mentioned, I'm not a tech writer or a localization person by nature. I'm a marketing and engineering guy, and I kind of fell into this role, and I had to approach it and learn the ins and outs of this process from scratch, and it kind of gave me a fairly interesting perspective. And hopefully I can share a little bit of that with you, and it'll help you understand how to communicate a bit more with some of those engineering and marketing and business types that might be in your way as you try and kind of embark on your own journey. In Varian's case, we started off with a problem that we had lots of English content, but our business was migrating very much to the rest of the world, and we were not responding very well to local language requirements in Europe and in Asia. And you know, the processes that we had were cumbersome and slow, and really weren't adaptable or scalable to the growth that we were seeing. And so we had to come back and take a real hard look at how we were going to meet these demands in the rest of the marketplace, and how we were going to do that without spending $1 trillion on it. So we kind of set ourselves on this kind of multi-step process to kind of get to a new, at the time, unknown end state. And I'm going to walk you through some of the steps we went through. I've got these 5 steps. If you could click forward. The first step that we went on, I'm calling Know Thyself. Again, as a guy who's kind of coming to this function without a background in tech writing or in localization, it was important for me personally, but also I think for the organization, to really understand where we were. Many people had kind of launched into these kind of efforts to see if we could get people engaged with data, but you know, we're unable to get much mind share, and we're unable to get people to truly support them in these efforts. And so my approach to this was to start off by just benchmarking ourselves, to understand where we were as an organization before we embarked on some of these changes. And if you could go to the next slide, we decided that we would work with Comtech, and Joanne and the Comtech team came to us and helped us with an information process maturity model survey. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the IPMM model, but basically you start from level 1, which is kind of generally kind of unstructured processes with lots of individual contributors and poor roles and definition of roles and responsibilities, all the way up to some type of nirvana at level 5, where you're, you know, you're world-class, leading in every area. But we decided that for us to launch into any type of change management that would involve data or kind of massive infrastructure changes and process changes, that we wanted to be at a level 3. And level 3, by definition, means a stable organization that's well-defined with well-understood and communicated processes. So as we went in and we looked at it, we measured 3 different groups. We have many tech pubs groups around the world, but we looked at 3 of our primary groups here in Palo Alto, in Helsinki, and also in Zurich. And we measured where we were along all of these different axes for organizational structure, QA, planning, so on and so forth. And it became very clear that we were quite a ways away from being a level 3 organization. In some cases, we were a very definitive level 1. In other cases, we had some strengths and some weaknesses, but in no case did we ever feel like we were at a level 3. And so our first step, or our second step after understanding that, if you could move on to the next slide, the next step was for us to really take a look at fixing the basics. And if you could move on again. What we did was, when each one of these axes in this information process maturity model, we developed a plan. And this is the details that we had back in 2009. So for organizational structure, we wanted to merge our technical publications team and our national language support teams, which is our localization team. So we went through each one: organizational structure, QA, planning, estimating, hiring and training, information design, cost control, quality management, and we came up with, for each one of those things, a set of steps that we felt would get us to level 3, which would enable us to take on a change management project like structured authoring. So obviously in organizational structure, we dealt with roles and responsibilities. In QA, we developed processes, global processes for workflows. We had terminology management plans. We developed supply and demand models so that we could actually understand how many resources that we would require. We started hiring editors, which was a role that we didn't have before. Ultimately, these migrated into kind of information architects. And we did, in information design is where we spent a lot of effort. And we launched into some pilot projects on minimalism. Again, we engaged with Comtech to have them train our teams on the concepts of minimalism. and start the process of migrating our teams to structured writing. And so at this point, you know, we hadn't even started anything in DITA, but we felt that by being at level 3, that our performance would improve. And really what we did was we established a lot of organizational credibility, which set the stage for our next steps. And if you move on one slide, the next step was making a bold plan. And if we jump forward here, one more slide, the idea here is that at this point, we have a clear definition of where we were. We have a clear definition of our gaps from a level 3 or a kind of a repeatable process-oriented team. And we've established a lot of organizational credibility within the company. And so at this point, we felt it's time for us to start into our DITA migration. But rather than jump forward and kind of go to management and tell everybody how we wanted to do things like DITA and throw acronyms like content management or CCMS or TMS and all these different things at management where they wouldn't understand it, what we wanted to do was look beyond the solutions that we wanted to do and focus more on the problems that we had. And in this case, really what we wanted to say was we wanted to increase the number of languages that we were going to provide, which was a major corporate issue. And we wanted to do it without spending any additional money. We wanted to do it with the resources that we had. And that was our promise. We promised the company that we would develop a strategy and deliver on a strategy that would drive more internationalization without increasing costs. And this is the 4 steps that we talked about. Obviously, tools and automation was a key part of it. We did talk about DITA, Simplified English and Minimalism. We did end up buying a content management system, and we had a translation management system. We implemented a whole new document lifecycle management process where we put tech writers in charge of all content for all languages as opposed to just English and having separate people responsible for the translations. And we made translation a service to the tech writer. And that made it easier for other people in the company to communicate with us and to understand the interfaces of the team. We put in place vendor management plans. We reduced the number of translation vendors from about a dozen down to 3, and we worked much more closely with each of those 3 vendors. We were able to drive common workflows through all of our vendors with common quality systems, and we were able to leverage the increased volume with each vendor to get volume purchase agreements and volume discounts. And then, obviously, we wanted to link our English and our national languages so that we could implement a stronger reuse strategy. So if you could move forward one slide. And so what this led to this idea was funding ourselves. We didn't actually ask for any money to implement all of these tasks. We went out and we said that we will fund our entire change management strategy through productivity in our localization process. And if you actually click forward, I'm going to show you a slide that I showed my management many years ago. We actually showed them how, for a particular document, this is one document that used to cost us about $55,000 to translate. And we showed how each one of the steps that we would go through would reduce the actual total cost of each of the major steps in translation. So vendor management took out about 5%. Tech pubs optimization, which was minimalism, removed a large amount by reducing the content and making it more streamlined. Translation memory management systems and translation memories were able to give us about another 50% reduction, and then DITA was going to give us even further through reuse and the elimination of DTP processes. So this was just an example of one document. We were actually able to drive many, many millions of dollars of efficiencies through our localization team, and with those savings, we gave some back to the company, and we took some to fund the purchase of a content management system, the purchase of all of the licenses for XML authoring systems, for the training that we needed. We ran probably about a dozen different DITA boot camps, and we funded everything without ever increasing the budget. And the last step, if you could move forward, is and again, going back to what Vikram said, you need to leverage your results over time to continue to get support. People forget what you've promised. People forget what you've delivered. And so it's important to continually show people how much impact these changes have. And if you actually show the last slide here, we would show people regularly in business reviews how our translation productivity has emerged, and we would show people how, as we did better, we got more tasks. As we did better and we increased the amount of content, we were able to continuously drive down the project cost despite the increase in the number of projects and the number of words. And so we always communicate and reaffirm how much benefit we're getting through our efforts, and that allowed us to continue to invest in further training and in further productivity improvements. So that's the 5 steps. I think in summary what I would say is that when you are about to launch into a program like DITA, it's important to step away from the technical details in the technical publications in the localization world, and really focus on what are the things that matter to management, the people that allow you to do these things. And those are building credibility in you and your team as a team that can embark on a major change, and showing that you're fiscally responsible and how you can fund these activities through efficiency, and showing how you can have an outcome that impacts the business in a positive way and not just the function of tech pubs or localization in a positive way. And that's it.
Hi, Kevin, that's terrific. Thank you so much. I've got, I know you have to sign off, so I've got one quick question, if my bird stops chirping here. There's a question about how do you convince management to let you keep the budget? You have a budget. I know some people don't have budgets at all for their departments.
Yeah, well, the first thing that I did was to actually consolidate all of the budgets globally, and so we did have budgets that were all local, and no one budget throughout the company was sufficient to fund any type of initiative. So our first step was to consolidate all localization and technical publications budgets into what we call the Global Publication Support Service, to give us the scale that would allow us to grow. The second thing, in terms of how do we convince management to keep it, well, you know, it was a quid pro quo. If we didn't invest the money ourselves, we weren't going to be able to deliver any of those productivity gains, and we were going to be faced with a continuous monotonically increasing budget every year. So the message you have to give to the company is one for you, one for me, but if you don't give me one, you don't get yours either.
Right. What's the most challenging behavior to change in the organization?
Ooh, the most challenging behavior to change, that's a very good question. There were so many of them. I think the single most challenging behavior was moving from unstructured to structured writing and having everything controlled in a global way. It meant that going from having 20 or 30 writers, all of who had their own way to do things, we went to one way of doing things globally, and there was a lot of people that there was some difficulties getting there, and so that's why we really invested a huge amount in training with custom boot camps and constant reiteration of the process.
Yeah. Do you think it's going okay?
Yes, I think it's going really well.
Yeah. Vikram, how about you? What was the greatest challenge?
Again, there were so many, but I would say it was similar, but for us it was more with the subject matter experts, where they wanted to, the writers were quite willing to say, well, okay, let's reuse, and this message is the same, and let's write it in a specific way. But the subject matter experts are very much, well, you know, I like the little twist in this sentence, you know, because I've always written it in this way, and if you change it, then I'm not, you know, I feel a bit insecure because I don't know if, you know, this sentence has always worked, why are you changing it? And so we really, at that point, ramped up our efforts in terms of engaging them, making them understand what we're doing, because we just assumed that they were going to support us. I think that was one of the biggest challenges.
How about future progress? Is there anything that you think could inhibit future progress in, you know, in reaching the next stage that you want to get to? Senior management, engineering, money, staff members? Kevin?
Obviously, we've kind of delivered on the large part of the kind of productivity gains that we get. So it'll be difficult to continue to show these large increases in savings and translations over time. And so that is probably going to be a challenge the next time we have some major investment that we want to make. It's not going to be quite as easy to find that inefficient pool of money that we can just milk. Getting the money the second time will be hard.
20% reduction in the per page cost.
Yeah, I mean, DITA delivers tremendous savings. DITA and minimalism is sufficient to fund all internal development over a period of years without asking for more money. But once you get past that, I think it's going to be tough to get extra cash.
Okay. Vikram, how about you?
I mean, I agree with that, and I think another symptom of what we've done where we also put all the budgets together in one place. So the benefit is, we can obviously, we get the saving and we're able to reinvest that. And also we kind of know how much we're spending as an organization on documentation, but now we've put quite a big number in one place. And a big number, at least in some organizations, becomes a target whenever the economy becomes challenging or costs need to be cut. And so again, it's almost as if we were at the beginning. We're constantly having to justify that number, show kind of what the organization is gaining and what extra they're gaining. It might not be as big as before, but we need to keep on justifying that because, as I said, a new leader comes in and all they see is a big number. And so, well, why is that number so big? Can I make it smaller? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's always a danger, when somebody's looking at a P&L. We have a question that says, how do you get executive team support for doing this? How do you convince them that this is valuable and important to do?
Well, they have to believe the problem, which is, you have to start with the problem that they relate to, and in our case, it was the internationalization became a kind of an unavoidable issue that they had to deal with, and so if you don't have that kind of huge kind of cost wave coming at you, it's going to be difficult to create a kind of a burning platform, as you mentioned before, Joanne, to kind of get everybody to buy into. But I think you have to show how you have to find a way to connect your activities to something that they care about. In my case, it was easy because localization had become a major issue. But if that's not the case, you have to show them how you can do all of this without costing them money, and you can increase some measure that they're actively watching.
Mm-hmm. Vikram, any take on that?
No, I fully agree. I think that's what you have to find, and we had also a bit of a localization challenge looming, so that also helped us in terms of doing the justification. In addition to that, we did also want to add a bit of a vision to this. So we're saving money, but then as I said, we talked about that quality aspect that we thought was key, and that future enabled us. Some executives, at least in our organization, found that that cost saving is important. They want to drive that, but if you can also give them something to show how we can make ourselves stand out and be different in the market and show ourselves as leaders, was also, I think, something appealing. Wouldn't have been enough to get them to justify the project, but definitely added something more to it than purely a cost-saving project.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, one of the things you did early on, too, was the sort of the restructuring of the IFU to better match what sales and marketing were saying was needed by customers. Because that was an early change. Was that recognized as a contributor? Maybe we've lost Kevin. Or he's on mute. Okay, well, let me ask one more. Vikram, there's a question about unifying the team globally. How is that? You've got people in more than one continent. How are you doing on that? How you're doing on the unification globally? I know people struggle with that because they have so many disparate teams?
I think it's going well. It's been quite challenging, and we've, to be honest, had to invest in getting the whole team into, face-to-face in the same building or the same room. I mean, in a couple of occasions, really to enable people to understand how each other the work and how they interact, and I think that's been very important and very easy to underestimate. But I think because we had such a good platform before we started doing this, we had such a good base of reusable topics, we had a very established process. That made it a lot easier to be able to, collaborate across continents. You're not having to, have all these development discussions, which you kind of do benefit from being much closer. We just kind of running a well-oiled machine, and whenever we want to do something very different, we kind of set that up as a separate project, and that's kind of separate from the day-to-day production. So thanks to that, it's worked very, very smoothly, and we've got now people that coordinate projects and the people that write, and the writer really could be anywhere as long as that project planning is done very well.
There's a question. Kevin, are you still there?
It looks like he's been disconnected.
Okay. There's a question, Vikram, then about the review process, a specific question. Are you finding that people are willing to review individual topics at this point, or are they still looking at entire books?
At this point, they are still looking at entire books, but we are now starting to get some pull for looking at topics again. We pushed actually quite hard for that at the beginning. It didn't really work out. But I think people did not quite understand that. They felt a bit insecure of looking at just the topic without seeing the full context. I think we've now, with people who've been with us for 2 or 3 years, they've now really have confidence in how this works, have a great understanding, and so they're now starting to pull and say, well, can you just show me the topic that has changed and publish again? So that's something we're going to kind of loop back to.
After they finally realized that it takes less time
exactly
to review one topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, Vincent, we have gone through the questions that we've gotten from the attendees, and I think I'd like to thank Vikram and Kevin for presenting a wonderful program.
Yes,
really exciting information, and hopefully we can people will listen to the recording and take this story forward. But thank you, Vikram, very much.
Thank you, Joanne.
Joanne, Vikram, and Kevin, thank you very, very much for all of your participation and very valuable information indeed. Interesting to hear, no doubt. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Please stay tuned to dclab.com for future webinars, and certainly we will be looking to get Joanne back onto our series circuit in the very near future. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.